Just 3 minutes ago, the monarchy changed forever. In a move no one predicted, Queen Catherine issued her very first royal decree, and it wasn't symbolic. It wasn't ceremonial. It was decisive. All of Camilla's titles revoked. No warning, no transition, just a single command that has sent shockwaves through the palace and beyond. The question now isn't what happened, but why Catherine chose to act so suddenly and so ruthlessly. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Because what has just unfolded is not simply a royal adjustment, it is a seismic shift in power. One that has disrupted decades of carefully maintained hierarchy in a matter of seconds. There was no gradual lead-up, no carefully managed narrative to soften the impact. The decree arrived with a finality that left no room for negotiation, no space for interpretation. For a first act as queen, it was not just bold, it was unprecedented. Monarchs are expected to symbolize continuity, to preserve structure, to maintain balance. But this was something else entirely. This was intervention, immediate, irreversible, and deeply personal. And that is what makes it so unsettling. Because it wasn't just about removing titles, it was about redefining authority itself. Inside the palace, the reaction was instant, though not outwardly visible. There were no public displays of panic, no dramatic confrontations. Instead, there was a tightening. Conversations became urgent. Movements became deliberate. Senior aides, long accustomed to anticipating every possible scenario, found themselves in unfamiliar territory. Because this was not a situation they had prepared for. There had been no leaks, no whispers, no early signs that something of this magnitude was about to unfold. And in a system built on predictability, that absence of warning was almost as shocking as the decree itself. The emotional weight of the decision quickly became impossible to ignore. This was not a distant or symbolic figure being addressed. This was Camilla, someone whose presence within the monarchy had been shaped through years of controversy, adaptation, and eventual acceptance. To strip her of all titles in a single decisive act was not just a political move, it was a statement. A message that carried implications far beyond the surface. Because in targeting Camilla so directly, Catherine was not just altering positions, she was confronting history. Almost immediately, questions began to surface. Not quietly, not cautiously, but with urgency. What authority was being exercised? What precedent does this set? And perhaps most critically, what does this mean for the stability of the monarchy moving forward? Even those within the palace, trained to interpret and implement royal decisions, found themselves navigating uncertainty. Because while the decree was clear in its execution, its implications were anything but. Beyond the palace walls, the reaction spread at a pace that could not be controlled. Within minutes, the world began to respond. Shock collided with support. Disbelief mixed with fascination. Some saw it as a long overdue act of justice, a bold correction of past narratives. Others viewed it as a dangerous escalation, a move that risked destabilizing an institution already under pressure. And in the middle of it all, Catherine stood as the central figure, not just as a queen, but as a force redefining what that role could mean. And yet, beneath all the reaction, one question continues to echo louder than the rest. Why now? Why this moment? Because decisions of this magnitude are never random. They are driven by something deeper, something that has been building, shaping, waiting for the exact moment to surface. But this moment didn't come out of nowhere, it was the culmination of tensions, memories, and power struggles that have been building for years beneath the surface. She was once the outsider who had to earn her place, step by careful step. But today, Catherine stands at the very center of royal power, and with it, the authority to reshape the monarchy itself. So how did she go from quiet composure to commanding one of the most shocking decisions in royal history? And what does this transformation reveal about the queen she has become? Because the answer is not found in a single moment, it is built over years of pressure, observation, and a discipline that masked far more than it revealed. Catherine's journey into the monarchy was never effortless. From the beginning, she existed under a level of scrutiny few could withstand. Every choice analyzed, every gesture interpreted, every silence questioned. She was not simply stepping into a role, she was being measured against expectations that were both rigid and unforgiving. And yet, she did not resist that pressure. She absorbed it, adapted to it, learned from it. While others might have reacted, Catherine remained composed, building something far more powerful than immediate influence credibility. That composure became her defining trait. She was not known for dramatic gestures or public confrontations. Instead, she mastered restraint, the ability to remain steady in moments that demanded reaction. The discipline to hold back when speaking out might have drawn attention, but not necessarily respect. And over time, that restraint began to shift how she was perceived, not as passive, but as controlled. Not as distant, but as deliberate. Behind the scenes, that perception translated into something more tangible: influence. Not loud or visible, but present. Growing quietly within the structure of the monarchy, Catherine became someone whose voice carried weight, even when it was rarely heard publicly. Her perspective began to shape decisions, not through force, but through consistency, through an understanding of both the institution and the public it served. And in that balance, she found something others often struggled with: alignment. Because while the monarchy has long been rooted in tradition, Catherine understood the changing expectations surrounding it. She recognized the importance of connection, of authenticity, of evolving without losing identity. And as public sentiment began to shift, her approach seemed to move with it, not against it. That alignment did not happen by accident. It was the result of years spent observing, learning, and preparing. What makes this transformation even more significant is the emotional resilience behind it. Because composure is not the absence of pressure, it is the ability to withstand it. Catherine faced criticism, expectation, and constant scrutiny, yet she did not allow those forces to define her. Instead, she used them to refine her role, to strengthen her position, to build a foundation that would support her when the moment to act finally arrived. And that moment, when it came, did not feel impulsive. It felt inevitable, as though everything leading up to it had been moving in a single direction, quietly, steadily, without drawing attention. The signs were there, but they were subtle. A shift in tone, a growing confidence, a presence that felt increasingly central, even before it was formally recognized. And when the decree was issued, it did not feel like a departure from who Catherine was. It felt like a revelation of who she had become. Because her calm was never a sign of hesitation. It was preparation. A deliberate choice to wait, to observe, to understand the system before choosing to reshape it. And now that she has acted, that preparation becomes visible in a way it never was before. And if Catherine's rise was built on patience, then her decision to act must be rooted in something far deeper, something tied directly to Camilla herself. She wasn't always accepted. In fact, she was once the most controversial figure in the royal family. But over time, Camilla transformed her image, secured her position, and quietly built influence within the monarchy. So how did someone once on the outside become powerful enough to shape the institution from within? And why would Catherine's first act be to strip that power away completely? Because beneath the surface of acceptance, something more complex had been forming, something less visible, but far more consequential than titles alone. Camilla's journey into the heart of the monarchy was not defined by sudden success. It was gradual, calculated. A slow shift from resistance to tolerance, and eventually to a level of acceptance that once seemed impossible. Public perception did not change overnight. It was reshaped over years of careful positioning, controlled appearances, and a quiet persistence that refused to fade under pressure. Where once she was viewed as an outsider, she became something else entirely established, embedded, and increasingly central. But acceptance, as powerful as it is, does not automatically translate into influence. That is something earned differently, not through visibility, but through proximity, through being present in the moments where decisions are formed, where perspectives are shaped, where direction is quietly determined before it ever reaches the public eye. And over time, Camilla found herself within those moments not as a passive observer, but as someone whose presence carried weight. That weight was rarely obvious. It did not manifest through official authority or public declarations. Instead, it operated beneath the surface, in the spaces where conversations are unrecorded and influence is most effective. Suggestions rather than commands. Guidance rather than instruction. A way of shaping outcomes without appearing to do so. And in a system as structured as the monarchy, that kind of influence can be far more powerful than formal titles. This is where the distinction becomes critical. There is the authority that the public sees, the roles, the titles, the hierarchy that defines the monarchy on the surface. And then there is the authority that exists behind it, the relationships, the trust, the subtle dynamics that determine how those visible roles are actually carried out. Camilla's position over time appeared to move increasingly into that second space. Less visible but more impactful. And within that space, tensions can develop without ever becoming public. Because influence, when it grows, inevitably begins to intersect with other forms of power. Catherine's rise introduced a new dynamic into that balance, one that may not have been immediately confrontational, but was undoubtedly significant. Two figures, both holding influence in different ways, navigating the same structure, shaping it in ways that were not always aligned. Those tensions, if they existed, would not have been obvious. They would not have unfolded in public disagreements or visible conflict. Instead, they would have existed in quieter ways, differences in perspective, in approach, in vision for what the monarchy should become. And over time, those differences can create pressure. Not enough to break the system, but enough to strain it. The perception that Camilla's influence extended beyond her formal role adds another layer to this complexity. Because when influence is not clearly defined, it becomes difficult to measure and even more difficult to challenge. It exists in a space where accountability is unclear, where impact can be felt without being directly attributed. And that is where the most unsettling idea begins to take shape. Power that is never officially acknowledged can still shape outcomes. It can guide decisions. It can alter relationships. And in doing so, it can become deeply embedded within the system itself. Not visible, but present. Not declared, but understood. And if Camilla held that level of influence, then removing her titles wasn't just symbolic, it was a direct challenge to a hidden power structure. No queen makes a move like this without reason. Behind every decisive action lies a moment, a breaking point that changes everything. And for Catherine, that moment may have been closer, more personal, and more explosive than anyone realizes. Because revoking titles isn't just political, it's a message. And this message was impossible to ignore. The scale of the decision suggests something far deeper than protocol. Something that had been building quietly, gathering weight until it could no longer remain contained. There are whispers unconfirmed, yet persistent, of a moment that shifted everything. Not in public, not in a way that could be easily traced, but in the private spaces where the monarchy's most sensitive dynamics unfold. A conversation, perhaps. A disagreement that went beyond difference of opinion and into something more personal. Something that challenged not just authority, but trust. Because decisions of this magnitude are rarely triggered by a single event, they are shaped by a pattern, a buildup of moments that slowly erode the possibility of silence. If there was a confrontation between Catherine and Camilla, it would not have been loud. It would not have been dramatic in the traditional sense. But that does not mean it lacked intensity. In fact, the most significant conflicts within the monarchy often unfold quietly, beneath layers of composure and restraint. Words chosen carefully, but carrying undeniable weight. Positions defended without raising voices. And within that controlled tension, something may have shifted, something that made it clear that coexistence was no longer sustainable in the same way it once had been. The emotional toll of such a buildup cannot be overlooked. Catherine's journey has been defined by patience, by restraint, by a willingness to endure rather than confront. But endurance has limits. And when those limits are reached, the response is rarely impulsive, it is decisive. Because by the time action is taken, the decision has already been made internally, shaped over time, reinforced by every moment that led to it. What makes this situation even more complex is the dual nature of Catherine's decision. It is both personal and strategic. Personal, because it appears to address something deeply rooted within the relationships at the core of the monarchy. Strategic, because it was executed at the exact moment her authority became absolute. That timing is not incidental. It transforms the decision from reaction into control, from responding to shaping. The symbolism of acting immediately cannot be ignored. It sends a clear message not just about Camilla, but about Catherine herself. That her reign will not be defined by hesitation. That decisions will not be delayed in the name of maintaining appearances. That authority, once held, will be exercised without ambiguity. And in doing so, she establishes a tone that will define everything that follows. But with that decisiveness comes risk. Because the monarchy is not just a structure, it is a balance. A delicate system of relationships, expectations, and perceptions. And altering that balance, especially so abruptly, introduces uncertainty. It challenges stability in the short term, even if it aims to reinforce it in the long term. And that is where the true complexity of this moment lies. Because this was not a decision made lightly. It carries consequences that extend beyond the immediate. It reshapes dynamics. It redefines positions. It forces reactions from those who may not have been prepared to respond. And perhaps assertively, it signals that what has been tolerated in the past will not necessarily be carried into the future. There is a growing sense that this moment has been building for far longer than anyone realized. That what appears sudden is, in fact, the result of years of observation, of calculation, of waiting for the exact moment when action would carry the greatest impact. And now that moment has arrived, and the consequences are already unfolding. But while Catherine acted with authority, the question remains, how did the rest of the royal family react to such a dramatic shift? No statements, no confirmations, just silence. But inside the palace, silence often hides the loudest reactions. As Catherine's decree spread, the royal family was forced into an uncomfortable position: respond, resist, or remain silent. And in that silence, something far more revealing began to emerge: division. Not the kind that announces itself openly, but the kind that settles quietly, altering the atmosphere, shifting the energy in ways that cannot be easily reversed. The initial reaction was shock-controlled, contained, but unmistakable. Senior royals, accustomed to structure and predictability, found themselves confronting a decision that had bypassed every expectation. There had been no consultation, no visible process leading to this outcome. And that absence of warning created a deeper unease. Because if something this significant could happen without anticipation, what else might follow? Confusion quickly followed, not just about the decision itself, but about how to respond to it. The monarchy operates as much through perception as it does through action. And in moments like this, every word or lack of it carries weight. To speak too quickly risked escalation. To remain silent risked appearing complicit or uncertain. And so, the response became measured, cautious, carefully restrained. But restraint does not eliminate tension, it often amplifies it. Within that tension, alignments began to form. Subtle at first, unspoken, but increasingly defined. Some gravitated toward Catherine's authority, viewing her decision as a necessary assertion of control, a step toward redefining the monarchy's direction. Others, however, leaned toward preserving what had existed before, seeing the move as disruptive, even destabilizing. Not necessarily opposing Catherine, but questioning the consequences of such a decisive shift. For those closest to Camilla, the impact was deeply personal. This was not an abstract change in structure, it was a direct alteration of identity, of position, of years spent building a place within the institution. And while the public may see titles as symbolic, within the monarchy they carry meaning that extends far beyond recognition. To lose them so abruptly is not just a procedural change, it is a redefinition of belonging. Maintaining unity under these conditions becomes an increasingly fragile task. Because unity is not simply the absence of conflict, it is the presence of shared understanding. And in this moment, that understanding feels fractured. Different perspectives, different interpretations, different emotional responses all exist simultaneously, each shaping how individuals within the family process what has happened. Silence in this context becomes a strategy. Not out of indifference, but out of necessity. It allows space for recalibration, for reflection, for decisions to be made without immediate pressure. But it also creates a vacuum, one that invites speculation, interpretation, and external narratives to fill it. And once those narratives take hold, they become difficult to redirect. What is becoming increasingly clear is that the monarchy's internal balance has shifted. Not completely, not irreversibly, but enough to be felt. Enough to influence how decisions are approached, how relationships are managed, how authority is understood. And once that shift occurs, returning to the previous state is no longer a simple option. Because this is no longer just about a single decree. It is about what that decree represents: a change in approach, in leadership, in the way power is exercised. And within the palace, that realization continues to unfold, quietly but persistently, shaping the path forward in ways that are not yet fully visible. And while the palace struggles to maintain control outside its walls, the public reaction is already rewriting the narrative. Within minutes, the world responded, and not quietly. Catherine's decision didn't just make headlines, it ignited a global debate. Was this long overdue justice or a dangerous overreach of power? As opinions clash and emotions run high, one thing becomes clear: this isn't just about the monarchy anymore, it's about what people believe the monarchy should be. Because in a moment like this, the story escapes royal control and becomes something larger, something shaped by millions of voices, each bringing their own expectations, loyalties, and unresolved feelings into the conversation. The reaction spread at a speed the palace could not contain. Platforms flooded with opinions, not cautious or measured, but immediate and emotional. Catherine's name surged, not just as a monarch, but as a symbol of change, of authority, of disruption. Support poured in from those who saw her decision as a bold correction, a long overdue shift toward accountability within an institution often perceived as untouchable. To them, this was not just leadership, it was courage. But just as quickly, opposition emerged. Critics questioned not only the decision, but the precedent it set. Could such power be exercised so abruptly? What does it mean for the structure of the monarchy if titles can be revoked in an instant? These questions did not come from hostility alone, they came from concern. Concern that a move so decisive could destabilize more than it resolves, that the balance between tradition and authority had been pushed too far, too quickly. At the center of this reaction, Camilla's legacy was pulled back into the spotlight, not as a settled chapter, but as an open debate. Every aspect of her journey was revisited, reinterpreted, and re-examined through the lens of Catherine's decision. For some, this was validation, a sense that unresolved tensions had finally been acknowledged. For others, it felt like reopening wounds that had long been considered closed. And in that divide, the complexity of public memory became impossible to ignore. A generational contrast began to take shape within the reaction. Younger voices, more accustomed to transparency and change, largely embraced Catherine's decisiveness. To them, the monarchy's evolution was not just expected, it was necessary. Older perspectives, however, approached the moment with caution, valuing continuity, stability, and the preservation of structure. And between those perspectives, a broader conversation emerged, one that extended far beyond a single decree. Because what is truly being debated is not just Catherine's action, but the identity of the monarchy itself. What should it represent? Authority or tradition? Adaptation or continuity? These questions, once theoretical, now feel immediate, urgent. And the public, more engaged than ever, is no longer content to observe from a distance. They are participating, shaping the narrative in real time. In that process, Catherine's image continues to evolve. No longer defined solely by composure and restraint, she is now seen as transformative. A figure willing to act, to disrupt, to redefine. Whether that perception solidifies into lasting support or ongoing controversy remains uncertain. But what is clear is that her decision has altered how she is viewed and how the monarchy is understood. And perhaps most significantly, the institution itself is no longer controlling the narrative. It is responding to it. Public sentiment, unpredictable and powerful, has taken the lead. Every reaction, every interpretation, every emotional response adds another layer to a story that is no longer confined to palace walls. But beyond the public reaction lies a deeper question: was this decision truly about Camilla, or about something much bigger? What if this wasn't just about removing titles? What if Catherine's first decree was a calculated move designed to reshape the monarchy itself? Because in a system built on symbolism, every action carries meaning. And as the pieces begin to align, a new possibility emerges, one that suggests this decision may be less about the past and more about controlling the future. Because when power is exercised this early, this decisively, it does more than resolve a situation, it sets a tone that everything that follows must now respond to. The timing alone demands attention. Catherine did not wait. She did not ease into her authority or test the boundaries of her position. Instead, she acted immediately, as if the moment itself had been anticipated, prepared for, perhaps even expected. And in the monarchy, timing is rarely accidental. It is chosen, calculated, designed to maximize impact while minimizing resistance, which raises an unsettling thought. This may not have been a reaction to circumstance, but a preemptive move to shape what comes next. In doing so, Catherine positions herself not as a transitional figure, but as a defining one, a monarch who does not simply inherit tradition, but actively reinterprets it. And that distinction matters, because it shifts the perception of her reign from continuity to transformation, from maintaining structure to redefining it. And once that shift occurs, every subsequent action is viewed through a different lens, not as preservation, but as intention. There is also the question of image, not in the superficial sense, but in how the monarchy is understood in a changing world. Catherine's decision sends a message that the institution is not static, that it is capable of decisive change when necessary. And for a public that increasingly values transparency and accountability, that message carries weight. It reframes the monarchy not as an unyielding tradition, but as something more responsive, more adaptable. But that reframing comes at a cost, because change, especially at this level, disrupts the very stability it seeks to modernize. At the same time, removing Camilla's titles does more than address a single figure. It alters the internal balance of influence. It removes a presence that, as suggested, may have extended beyond formal authority, and in doing so, it consolidates power in a way that cannot be ignored. Because influence, once removed, does not simply disappear, it creates space. Space that must be filled, directed, controlled. And that space now belongs to Catherine. But consolidation is not without risk. A move this bold invites scrutiny, not just from the public, but from within the institution itself. It challenges expectations, disrupts established dynamics, and forces those within the system to reassess their positions. Some may see it as strength, others may see it as instability. And that divide, subtle though it may be, has the potential to shape how Catherine's authority is received moving forward. What makes this moment even more significant is the possibility that it is not isolated, that it is not the conclusion of a conflict, but the opening of a new phase. Because actions like this rarely stand alone. They signal direction, they establish momentum. And once that momentum begins, it tends to continue, building upon itself in ways that are not always predictable. There is a growing sense that this decree may be the first step in a broader redefinition of royal power, a shift away from passive authority toward something more active, more assertive, more willing to confront the complexities that have long remained unspoken. And if that is true, then what we are witnessing is not just a decision but a strategy unfolding in real time. And if this was only the first move, then the real question becomes what comes next. The crown has always stood for continuity, but what happens when continuity is replaced with change? Catherine's decision has done more than alter one position, it has reshaped the entire perception of royal power. And now, as the monarchy stands at a crossroads, one truth becomes impossible to ignore: the future of the crown may look nothing like its past. Because what was once defined by tradition is now being challenged by intention. And that shift carries consequences that extend far beyond a single moment. For generations, the monarchy has relied on stability as its greatest strength. A sense that, no matter the turbulence around it, the institution itself would remain unchanged. Predictable, structured, rooted in a continuity that reassured both those within it and those observing from the outside. But Catherine's decision disrupts that expectation. It introduces a new variable, one where authority is not just inherited, but actively exercised in ways that redefine the boundaries of what is possible. This signals the beginning of a new era, one shaped not by quiet preservation, but by deliberate action. Catherine is no longer simply a figure within the system, she is becoming a force that shapes it. Her role is evolving from participant to architect, from someone who upholds the monarchy to someone who is willing to reimagine it. And that transformation is as powerful as it is unpredictable. With that transformation comes a shift in how authority is understood. Traditional hierarchies, once seen as fixed and unquestionable, now appear more flexible, more open to reinterpretation. And while that flexibility allows for adaptation, it also introduces uncertainty. Because when structures begin to change, the question is no longer just how they function, but how far those changes might go. Public expectation plays a crucial role in this shift. The demand for transparency, for accountability, for a monarchy that reflects the values of a modern world has been growing steadily. Catherine's decision aligns with that demand in a way that cannot be ignored. It suggests a willingness to meet those expectations, to engage with them rather than resist them. But in doing so, it also raises the stakes. Because once that level of responsiveness is established, it becomes something the public will continue to expect. Inside the monarchy, the long-term impact is still unfolding. Relationships that once operated within clear boundaries must now adjust to a new reality. Trust, already strained, must be redefined. Roles must be reconsidered. And in that process, the balance that has sustained the institution for so long is being quietly recalibrated. Not broken, but changed in ways that are not yet fully understood. There is also the possibility that this is only the beginning. That Catherine's first decree is not an isolated act, but the first in a series of decisions that will continue to reshape the monarchy's direction. Because once a precedent is set, it creates momentum. It establishes a new standard for what can be done and how it can be done. And that momentum, once in motion, is difficult to slow. And yet, with all of this change, uncertainty remains. Because transformation, while necessary, does not guarantee stability. It challenges it, tests it, forces it to adapt. And whether the monarchy emerges stronger or more divided will depend on how these changes are managed moving forward. What we are witnessing is not just a moment, it is a turning point, a redefinition of power, of leadership, of the very identity of the crown. And as that redefinition continues to unfold, one question lingers with increasing weight. And as the monarchy moves forward, one question lingers: has Catherine just saved the crown? Or changed it forever? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.